Hi, my name's Kim Hurdon. I am a casting agent and voice director. I come from a small northern Ontario town called Sault Ste. Marie. Moved to London, Ontario for college, and then dropped out after a year because they took attendance because I thought I was a grown-up, and that I didn't like it. Opened a retail store that had punk rock merchandise. Somebody broke in, took all of our stuff. So we weren't covered. Went bankrupt. Moved to Toronto. Started busking for a living, and then answered an ad in the paper that asked, "Do you like music?" And I do. So I ended up as a receptionist at a music house for a few years, then moved into casting when the agent left. From there, opened my own business called KH Casting. Now have 7 or 8 casting people and voice directors, and we do all genres of voiceover, animation, commercial, audiobooks, gaming, and I have an awesome dog named Zelda.
Welcome to Scratch, Claw, Push, a podcast about artists clawing out a place for themselves in the world. I'm Billy Jo Cones.
And I'm Brendan Duke. Let's go.
I don't even know where to start with this, to be honest.
So were you doing, like, was punk rock kind of your genre back in the day? Is that
was? Yeah, I had bleach blonde hair. I probably have a picture somewhere that stuck up like 1.5 feet and black makeup, and yeah, Susie, even the Banshees makeup. Oh yeah, that was the thing.
nice?
What were your favorite bands back then? I'm just curious.
Susie, and like all the traditional stuff, you know, like
All the usual suspects.
all the usual suspects. I mean, from Sex Pistols to Ramones to just all traditional, and then moving forward.
And then you had a band yourself, is that right? You were in a band?
Much later, yeah. And it wasn't punk rock. That's when I moved to Toronto. So I started, that's when I started singing. After that, actually, because this is a weird jump, we probably haven't played for about 5 years, but for about 10 years, I was in a disco cover band called Booty Smacker.
Booty Smacker?
Booty Smacker,
Okay.
Yep. And full costumes, platform boots, Master Johns, wigs. We did costume changes, and we made a lot of money playing bar mitzvahs and corporate shows, and we were good.
That sounds like fun. That sounds like a lot of fun. I had a friend ask me to be in her Jimmy Buffett cover band, and I was like, if it was anything other than Jimmy Buffett, I would probably say yes, but it's Jimmy Buffett, so...
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. If it was disco, I'd be in.
Right?
Definitely. Yeah.
Nothing against Jimmy Buffett, but yeah, I feel like that's a very, very particular lane.
Yeah, singular. Yeah.
There are people I know who just absolutely love that dude, and I'm like, good for you. He made a lot of people very happy.
He did.
I mean, it wasn't my thing, but
And
it doesn't have to be.
Still is. I mean, making a lot of people very happy. But yeah. So going back to you had a retail store, and
I did.
It was punk merchandise.
It was, buckle boots and T-shirts, and I started a relationship with a couple of record labels down in the U.S. too at the time, and so we'd sell merchandise for them, stickers, a lot of Black Flag stuff, that sort of, we did.
And so, like, about how old were you when you started this retail business?
Oh God, probably
20,
21.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's like, I don't know, that's brave for someone of that age, I feel like. Did you feel brave?
No, because punk rock is all about doing it yourself. And so it was sort of bucking against, the man, if you will. And just, we can do this. No bigs. So because I had a partner, we did it, like Lori and I, and she actually still has a store in London, Ontario, ironically. So we just thought we can do this. No problem. Naive, but it worked.
That's great.
Until it didn't.
Well, I mean, so I love that you came from that, like, punk rock mentality, like you just said, of we can do this and let's do it ourselves or whatever. Because so many people now are just, I feel like a lot of people are afraid to take those risks. Do you think, like, that just being in that punk rock world really helped you learn that skill?
Yeah. A big part of it, and all of the people in that world too were very like-minded. So being surrounded by that sort of people having the same mentality was super helpful. And lately I've been talking about the fact that I think I just had also super supportive parents, which I didn't understand at the time because, they're parents. But moving away from that and then growing up and realizing there was just sort of this innate sense of a cushion or everything's going to be okay. And so that enabled me to make decisions that were probably scary, but it didn't occur to me that I could fail. Yeah. So thanks, Mom and Dad. I should thank them in real life.
Yeah, you should. The value of supportive parents can never be understated, because I've met, I used to think my parents were tough, but of course then you get out in the world and you meet people who had like really genuinely non-supportive people, or parents who barely gave a damn about them, and you realize, oh yeah, mine really weren't that bad. Like,
You're exactly right. That's it. Because back then, when you're 18, 19, you're like, they're so stupid. They don't understand me and I'm cool and they're dumb. And then if you're 30 and you're like, oh, they're actually cool people and they like me and I like them. Who knew?
They even let you play punk rock, where I know people where that wasn't even no, you want a guitar, get the...
Right. Oh yeah. Very supportive in that way. Like I said, coming from Sault Ste. Marie, small town. So there weren't a lot of punk rocker people there, which is why I probably elected to leave. But wearing stuff to school, I remember my dad coming down to school one time, you'd think to give me crap, but no. It was because I think I was wearing see-through pants or something, and I had black masking tape wrapped around them. And they were like my dad's rain pants. Do you know what I mean? Because, but they look cool when they had gaffer tape all around them. And one of the teachers said that I was a distraction, so I had to leave. Kim has to go home. And my dad said, no, she's not. You're making it seem that way. She's going to stay in class. So my parents were cool. Like, even though I didn't think they were, they were.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so you had the retail store, and then how long were you kind of doing that for?
Gosh, that was probably a couple of years. But then, as I said, somebody broke in Tom Cruise style, like through the ceiling and dropped down, like cut a hole. Yeah, that's quite a thing. And I thought, oh, no big, like we got insurance. It's not a big deal. But when you're 21 or 22, you don't know about insurance. So I think, and now I still don't remember the terminology, but we were covered for theft and not robbery, or conversely, the other way. And so we were covered if someone came in and stuck us up, but not if someone stole the stuff while we weren't there.
So like no Mission Impossible style heist. That wasn't in the coverage.
That's crazy. So even though they came through the ceiling, I mean, how did they get in through the ceiling anyway? I'm really curious about this. Yeah.
They cut a hole. Like they literally cut a hole. I think there was a skylight or something, and they cut a hole through the skylight and then just dropped down, and I got through I don't know. I wasn't there. I wish.
Wow.
I mean, that's terrible, but I really have to admire that person's dedication. That's kind of like, you didn't just walk in and ransack the place. Like, they had to put some time and effort into that.
Yeah. Well, and at that point, we built the business up. So we had tons of leather boots that we were ordering from Montreal, and it was like lots of leather jackets. And so it was just like, now we're screwed, because we didn't have a business plan. It was just, now we have money, we'll buy more stock. So we didn't have safe. So we, had to go bankrupt.
Awful.
Yeah.
So how did you find your way into the voice casting world? Like, or how did, what's the journey to get you from the store to the business where you got put in place where you could step up? So.
Yeah. Well, and as Billy Joe said, I sort of fell into it almost. I moved to Toronto. I think I was managing record stores then. So I got transferred to Toronto because that's where I wanted to live, big city, punk rock, more people like me. And the record store closed that I was working at. And then instead of getting another job at a record store, that's when I started busking. So my roommate and I just went down on the street and sang for money, and that's how we made a living. And then I thought, well, this can't keep going. So I looked back in the day in the newspaper for an ads, and there was an ad in the newspaper for a music house, an audio house. And so I started working there as a receptionist. and probably lasted a couple of years. And then the casting director that they had on staff went to a competitor, and on the way out of the door, she said, "I think Kim would be good at this." I'm like, "What? Me? What? Really?" So they trained me up, and that's how I started.
So I want to ask, like, what do you think it was about you, or what do you think you had done at the time? Because I was a receptionist in an ad agency for 4 years, and I
Oof.
was acting and had my headshots and resumes out all the time, and and everybody knew I was an actor, but nobody ever like said, "Hey, we need to get you in on a casting. Like, we should just invite you in." Nobody ever did that, and so I always wondered if there was something more I could have done to like get their attention, because like I think some of it is if you don't ask, you don't get, right? Like some of it is just being open enough to just be audacious and say, "Hi, I want to work with you guys. Like, I'm here and
Yeah.
you know me and you know I'm reliable and you like me. So let me in, like give me a chance, But, so I'm just curious if what she might have seen in you, or what you might have done that really got their attention like that.
Yeah, I've often thought the same thing, and I should ask her because I still know her.
Hmm.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I mean, I did my job well. She may have, again, I'm assuming, because I was musically inclined or into music, because that has a lot to do with voiceover and how you're listening. That may have had something to do with it. I don't know. You know what? I'm going to ask her.
Yeah, I'm super curious because, like, it took like 10 years after working there to have people finally be like, "Oh, hey, we heard your audition now that you're doing voiceover, and we pushed for you with the client because we actually loved your audition and we know you." But it took like that much time,
Wow.
And so I guess for our listeners, I just think so much of it comes down to having the audacity to ask for, to put yourself out there. And a lot of people like me are just raised really Minnesota nice, and like you don't brag about yourself, and you're humble, and you don't put yourself out there, and so like we don't get.
Yeah.
I think it's an extension of that. I heard someone coin the term. It's something that came out of like the Scandinavian countries. They called it tall poppy syndrome, where nobody wants to like stand up and stand out too much. And it sounds like that kind of carried over into that region.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. Yeah. And then,
Oh, yeah. Because Canada, please.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Canadians and Minnesotans aren't all that different.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I'm just, I guess I was curious, like if maybe some of the punk rock audacity rubbed off, and
It could be that. It could be just that is who I am. And I've always thought of myself as a shy person because I was when I was a kid. And so when people now say, "Oh my, you're so great and you're so outspoken," I'm like, what? Me? Oh, no, I don't think so. So having to get used to reframing yourself almost every decade and see actually who you are and rejig is a goal of mine, because I still you never know who you are, and you hold on to all those childhood, whether it be the brother or the older sister or the way your mom sees you, and then just different facets of yourself as you grow.
Well, I think that's how you see yourself, and then that's how everybody else sees
That's
you.
it.
And then sometimes I think like, God, I realize like that half the stuff I'm saying in my head, I'm not saying out loud. So I'm not coming off anywhere near as bad as I think I am. And I was like, oh, wait, you didn't say like, those other 13 things. You said the one thing that was actually kind of just tempered and nice versus all the other times you were telling someone to F off in your head.
Well, you got to be careful with that one, though, because sometimes, if you don't have the poker face, my mom says I don't have a poker face. So, like, if you don't have the poker face, sometimes those FU thoughts can come out the face, too.
Oh, it's true. It's true. Like darkness.
I want you to feel this disrespect.
Yes. See, but in the opposite way, though, Brendan, I used to be ashamed of the fact that I didn't do higher education, that I quit college after a year. So when people would talk about, because people that graduated do when they graduate university or college, "Oh, so what did you take and what degree do you have?" And I just kind of, because it was embarrassing to me. And then that took a long time, like into my probably 30s, until I realized, oh no, I have different skills and I'm a different kind of smart. And it's sometimes you're judged because of that, by just, you don't have that higher education. I think it's kind of cool. Like, it's just a different way of being in the world. And they certainly didn't back in the day have the facility to even incorporate different ways of learning or different ways of people thinking. So it was just very cookie cutter, and I didn't fit into that. So that was a hard one.
That's a good
But
point.
do you think that, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Kelly, I want to follow up.
Go ahead.
Like, do you think that like you coming up the way you did probably helped in the sense that, you know, when you're out there, especially like kind of like you're in the real world. Yes, I just did finger quotes. So like for the people just listening, like when you're out there having to figure it out, like you'd already run a business, so you've got that experience. Like you're getting the stuff out there, just living your life and go, you know, doing what you're doing, that like necessarily that the college kids don't necessarily have. Like, because I feel like college, you're getting pumped full of a lot of theory, and maybe you're getting some practice in there. Like, well, theater, you know, you're getting to put on plays and do all that stuff. But then there's a lot of other, you know, areas of study where it's really just a lot of theory until you get out into the world. And I've seen tons of people, you know, we've talked to people on the show, like people that maybe didn't come up the, we'll call it the conventional way, or, you know, like, you know, you go to high school, go to college, and you go get the job, and hopefully you get it into something that you actually studied, even though that's a lot of times that's not the case. But like when you're out there having, you know, living, you know, just doing stuff again, like in, you know, the real world where it's going to have consequences if you fail. So like, I feel like it instills you're got a different mindset where, you know, you don't necessarily have that safety, you know, blanket that, you know, or, you know, the safety net, you know, security blanket, whatever. We just mixed up a whole new thing there. But yeah, you don't, like, I found like that mindset, I think is a lot. It sharpens you in a way that I think that college doesn't a lot of times. Do you find that to be the case?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And that's where I'm saying, you know, in my 30s, finally realizing, oh, wait, I am intelligent, just in a very different way. As you said, it's more street savvy. It's boots on the ground. It's, instead of, okay, I've graduated, here's my diploma and my degree. And then most people don't go into the field that they study. It's just like, what is happening? So yeah, having real life knowledge, I think, is probably irreplaceable. And as you said, because I started so young, I just went, oh yeah, cool. Okay, moving on. And now we'll do the next thing, and then the next thing, and the next thing. It wasn't waiting back because I'm going to be, I don't know, a lawyer or something, and then trying to go up in that way. It was just sort of, okay, now what do I want to do?
So was there ever a point in that whole process of getting there? Because I know, you know, this person kind of said they could, you know, you could do their job, and then you kind of got put in the process of getting to now having your own business. Was there ever a point where you were like, I'm adrift, I don't know what I'm doing, you know, was there ever any huge struggle or huge obstacle you had to overcome to get where you are?
Yeah.
You make it sound like you're just like floating along, like, oh, try this, I'll try this.
No. You want me to say all the terrible things? I can say terrible things.
Yeah, you can swear here too. We're totally all about the swearing. So,
oh, yeah. See, why'd you let that genie out of the bottle? Oof. Okay.
Because I was raised that way.
Go. Okay.
Let's fucking go.
See, you're people. Yep. Go on.
I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. Yes, bad things have happened, but I try not to concentrate on them, and I try to go away. Like I've been sued, and like tons of different things have happened. In personal life, terrible things with men and things. But we're not here to talk about that.
Different podcast for a different day.
Thank you.
I don't know what we're going to call that one, but we'll circle back around all that stuff.
Okay, thanks. I'll be there. But I guess it's just, as you said, there's a safety net. And so I realize everything's going to be okay. It's going to work out. It's just may take longer than you thought, or you're going to have to go a different direction. Or there's been times just with this business that It's not been good. We've had a really bad year, and I haven't been able to pay myself for 3 or 4 months. This is a while ago. Thank God. But it's happened. And so then looking at the world differently and thinking, okay, so if this isn't succeeding, now what do I do? So it's that punk rock attitude, I think, of just clawing your way through it and looking ahead and figuring out, okay, that's not working. Oh, now what? So what happened when that was happening was I thought, I got to look at this differently, because casting is going a different way, and especially for voice, and agents started to put booths into their own agencies. And I was like, oh yeah, now we're screwed. We're screwed, because now everyone's just going to go direct. So they're going to cut us out, which happened. So that's when I started to move it into voice direction. And that added a whole other facet to the company, as well as adding gaming, which, as you probably know, is growing exponentially. And that's like the biggest growth probably of all entertainment right now is gaming. So there's always work there. So just figuring out different avenues to go as things fail, as just keep on going. Yeah.
I guess how do you decide what to pivot to? I mean, like, do you just kind of take a step back in those moments and look? Because I think sometimes I've seen people go, this has to work, and they keep doing the same thing over and over, and they're just like, well, it's either this or I quit and I go get a day job. And they neglect the fact that they have blinders on. They're either like forward or backwards. And they neglect the sides. They neglect it's that whole, if a door is closed, look for the open window thing. They're not looking for that, and so they'll be like, well, what I'm doing isn't working. I'm going to keep trying. I'm like, but have you tried a different way? Right? So is that kind of like what you've done in those moments? Because I'm just curious, like, we've had people on the show who've been like, I was ready to give up. Like, Stephen said the same thing. Like, I was ready to give up. I was ready to go get a real job. I'm using air quotes now. I was ready to get a real job and not pursue this dream anymore. And that's a really hard place to be. And, I think there are people in the world who would just be like, yeah, be realistic. Go get a real job. But it's not punk rock, is it?
It's not. And I can't even imagine having a real job now. I don't know if I could. I don't know if I could have a boss and have to be there from 9 to 5. I don't think I could do it. So again, I try not to consider failure. I mean, it's all learning. I consider it a failure, whatever that might be. It's just, that's not working. And I try to do many, many different things. So I'm trying things all the time. If there's an opportunity, I'm going to meet with that person. If they're, if it's gaming, then I've got to study that and I've got to figure it out. So I do a lot of groundwork before I start to delve into something. But every opportunity to meet with someone, to do something new, to think a new way, to do like a panel or a game show or whatever it might be, I'm open to all of that, because most of them won't work. Most of them you're going to meet with people, and because not everybody, most people are, you know what you should do? You know what we should do? We should do this thing. Here's a cool idea. And no one will ever follow through and actually do the work. So 90% of what I do is meet with people and come up with ideas, and we have all fun meeting and everything's cool. And 10% of it is a go. So it's just doing the work, doing the legwork.
It seems to be like the thing that I have encountered, just like going out there trying to work with like various people out there and, doing whatever, like any kind of producer work, you're going out there, you're trying to find the people or the projects and say, hey, you got something here. Let's do a thing. And you realize that there's so many people, and Billy has mentioned this so many times on this podcast. I can't even,
I can't wait to hear that.
But like the idea of like these people that are so scared of failing at something or failing at anything.
Yeah.
They like they're out of the game before they were ever even in the ballpark. Like there's people who will just sheerly out of just this, it's like, oh, I could never, I just couldn't.
Yeah. But
then we've got other people like yourself who are like, well, fuck it, I'm just going to try it. If it doesn't work, I'll do something else.
Yep.
And so many people that we've talked to that have gone on to actually find that thing that they do for years and years and years, and would even consider, by at a certain point you have to consider like, well, I must be pretty decent at this because I'm still doing it.
Yeah.
People are still paying me, but I mean, so it's like, but just that willingness to try and fail and then try again.
Yeah.
That I think like, and it sounds like you, whether you knew you were learning it or not, you were picking that up at that early age.
Agreed.
Getting, you're doing the bands, doing the store.
Yeah.
Okay, now the store fails, so I have to. And just, I feel like that I am starting to see that like that is probably the most valuable. I don't know if you want to call that like a value or the most valuable value or the most or skill or whatever you want to call that. Like that mentality is fucking priceless.
It is. I know. When you were talking about that, I'm going to misquote this, but I feel like it's a Wayne Gretzky quote that you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's that. It's just you got to try all the things, and if something fucks up, that's okay because you got 99 other things that are happening, spinning plates, and you're doing whatever it takes. And I just think life is cool. And I like being inquisitive and I like discovering new things and you challenging myself every day and scaring myself. I love it.
Maybe that's the punk rock thing, is the being willing to scare yourself. Cause I mean, part of creating this podcast is to sort of reach those people who are the ones who are like, oh, I'm going to write that novel someday. Oh, I have this idea, but they never do it. And I think our society has made it really hard. I mean, we give people all these comforts. We give people video games and we give people all the television they could want and, internet, social media. And we spend hours and hours a week scrolling and then don't create. And we always think like, we don't have time to create. But like, if most people took a look at how much time they're spending on this other thing, it's like you could spend an hour a week doing something for you, and you'd probably feel 10,000 times better for having done that, right?
Yeah.
So it just kind of hurts my soul that so many people have all this untapped creative potential, and it's some people will be like, "Well, don't tell me I need to be productive." I'm like, I'm not talking about productivity. Mm-mm. I'm talking about expressing what's inside of your soul.
Well, it's ironic that like we live in an age now where you've got more opportunities just by cost of like whatever it takes to make a thing. Like you've got, now we walk around with like a high def camera in your pocket that records pretty good audio. I mean, like we're producing this podcast that we're on now for like a shoestring budget, like, and even just like 10 to 15 years ago, doing what we're doing now would have been unthinkable. Yeah. Certainly like when, like, I'm guessing we're all close to a similar age where like that was like few video calls were like some stuff you saw on the Jetsons,
Right.
It was like, but just like we have all this opportunity, but I also feel like our society has become so risk averse just because now, like, especially with social media and all this other stuff, you get, like there's that fear of kind of like failing publicly and getting dragged, or just having people, like just the endless, sea of trolls out there on the internet where someone's going to come up and say something mean to you. And you're just like, and usually like, cause we've had it on this podcast where I'll see someone pop up on YouTube and say something. Then of course, the first thing I do is go click on their page. Like, what have you done? Right. Okay. Well, you're some garbage playlist that you put together. Get the fuck out of here. And then, like, don't talk to me unless if you got something that like, it's like, but people get so put off by it that it again, like people taking themselves out of the game before they're ever getting in it.
Yeah. What I've noticed, and it's the same thing that you're both saying, is kids don't have that sort of keep trying. They're like, I'm good because of phones, because everything's and the attention span is, and through no fault of theirs, but they don't have that stick-to-itiveness that we have or had or shall continue to have. It's just like, no, I'm good. I can't do it. Well, no, try. You got to try. You're not going to be great at everything, but you got to try. You got to like maybe have something other than chicken fingers. I'm just saying, Like, try some shit. It's just kids don't seem to be doing that. I don't know whether it's society, the parents, I don't know. But I'm a little worried about the future.
You know, I
in
thought
that way.
about that, what you're saying, when my sister was young, because she's younger than me, and you know, we have different moms, and so she was raised differently than me. But like, she did track for a little bit, twisted her ankle, gave up. She did flute for a while, gave up on that. She did a couple other things, theater for a little bit, but she kept stopping, and I was like, but why? Like, you know, when I was a little sad that my mom would have been like, you're going to keep going, right?
Right. I paid for it. You have to go.
Right. Not that my mom paid for any of those things, but you know what I mean? Like, yeah, like my mom probably would have been like, no, you get back out there and try it again. And so I had a fear about that with her and her generation too. But like, I think what ended up happening was, you know, really she hadn't found what she was like into. I started loving theater when I was 3. So like, I always wanted to do theater, and I always wanted to write, and I always wanted to sing, and, you know, all these other things. But my sister hadn't really found her thing until she found photography. And now she's a nurse, but she also does photography. And so like, she's still doing the photography. She still loves that. And she does it for herself, not for money. Right. But that is perfectly valid. And like, so I'm glad she finally found the thing that she loved enough to stick to it. Right.
Yeah.
So I just wonder if sometimes, like, I do think sometimes kids need the thing that we're talking about, which is being forced to stick to something until we really decide it's not for us, and
That's
not just the discomfort that everyone goes through when they're learning something new, right?
Well, that's it. And that's what you had mentioned earlier, that people just sort of sit back and they maybe do want to write a novel, but it's that uncomfortable place where you have to do the work and sit there in front of the blank page and shit your pants and think, I can't do it. I can't. But sit with that and be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's what I'm talking about, just fighting through that, and maybe being a little competitive, and like, there's a lot wrapped in that. But yeah, it's there. It just has to be helped.
So with you, go ahead.
No. Well, no, I would just like I can, you know, just to give a personal example of that. Honestly, like all my, like with I had to get back into doing music after years of like not even picking up a guitar, because when I started doing videos, I realized like, oh, I can't, you know, I can't afford to pay anyone to do this. I have to do it myself. And I always tell people who, yeah, it's like, if you give me enough takes on GarageBand, I actually sound like I know what I'm doing. Like, and that can be really humbling, because they're sitting there counting the takes when you realize like, oh shit, I'm up to like take 80. I really need to, like, at some point stick the landing. And to the point where like it's always do my best work where I'm in that moment of just like utter emotional devastation. Like, I suck and I can't do anything. Then suddenly you'll just nail it. And you're like, I mean, I don't know where that came from, but I mean, again, if I wasn't, you know, for whatever it is in me that got me to that, like, to get through that, like, that's, I mean, it's one of those, like, after that, there's a moment when I recognize that and I go, oh, okay. I mean, but so many people, again, they don't even get there. And I'm curious, like with you, like, so now that you're kind of got it circling back around to the voice casting, have you noticed like a lot, like kind of working with so many different people, kind of doing, you know, kind of get, especially because I mean, Billy knows more about the voice thing, but like, I was like, what is that? What do you know? Like, you see like the ones that kind of, that progress versus the ones that might kind of come in and then kind of, you know, the people who either show themselves the door or they just kind of tail off for whatever reason.
But it's exactly what we're talking about. And it's the most boring answer. It's they put the work in. The people that are successful don't come into it and think, I have a great voice. Someone told me I have a great voice, so I'm gonna do voiceover. And then they don't book, and then they quit, or they book one thing, and then you gotta coach. You've got to listen to the genres. You've got to practice at home on your own. I know a voice actor up here that will literally take 1 or 2 hours a day to practice, and she does an awful lot of animation. So she's now practicing creature sounds, or now I'm going to talk like a 5-year-old boy, or until she nails it and it's in her. and she can just easily pull it up. It's that kind of work that just elevates them, and people will hire them over and over and over again because they can pull it up at a moment's notice. So that, to me, that's what it is. It's just putting in the hours, man. It's so boring, but that's what it is.
So I was going to ask, with you and starting your business, how did that, I mean, you moved from the other one to starting your own. How did that come about? And I guess what was that like for you? What was that process like? And what kind of work did you have to put in to do that?
You're right. And I made it sound seamless, and it wasn't. So it was the place that I was at, the initial place, I want to say they closed, and someone bought them. And then I was part of the package, which was really weird. I'm like, I'm chattel? Okay. And so I went over to work.
Dowry.
Yeah, exactly. So all of a sudden I'm working at a new place, and I was there for probably a year. And then I decided, oh yeah, see, here's something stupid I did. I decided I'm going to do my own thing. Little rascals. And so I decided I would do it. And then I gave them my notice, and I sent out a notification by mail, because email, not a thing. This is 100 years ago. And I didn't realize that I sent it out using their envelopes. So 2 or 3 of them got returned to sender, and they were kind of like, yeah, you can't do this. You can't poach our clients. Not cool. So we're suing you. And so that was one of the suing times where I went, oh no. Yeah. So I started up, now that I'm thinking about it, ironically, with the woman that had recommended me. We started a partnership together through that. So she helped me through that. She said, oh, I've got a lawyer and I've got a retainer. Just talk to him. Oh. And so we started a voice casting business together, and I grew it from there.
So what were some of the biggest hurdles, whether it was just kind of like, challenges you had to learn in business, or just stuff, within yourself that you had to, get over, getting into that business,
Yeah. If we're just talking about the business side of it, it was realizing that I'm not good at everything, and finding and hiring people that are. So I suck at numbers. My dad was a math teacher, so things around the kitchen table did not go well. Come on, you can do. I'm like, I can't. So, but I have this awesome accountant and an awesome bookkeeper, and I trust them implicitly, and they do all of that. So I don't have to. I'm not good at it. I suck at it. So finding people that are really good at what they do and surrounding yourself with them is pretty intrinsic to having a successful business, and just letting go.
I think that's great advice, because that's another thing I think, like, people, and part of it is wanting control, right? Like, people want to stay in control of all these pieces, and you can't if you're going to grow it, right? In order to grow it, it's like eventually you have to delegate, and people are like, oh, I can't trust my kids to do these chores. I have to do them. Otherwise I'm not going to do them right. Or I can't trust so-and-so to do this. No, I need to do everything. And you're like, when you micromanage, then you're taking your attention away from the other things that could help it be more, right?
Yeah.
So how did you find the right people to help you grow it, besides, you mentioned the accountant and everything like that? How did you learn to trust others?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Mostly talking to people in relationships, and who do you trust? I mean, in the same way that you're going to find an awesome plumber, or right? That's the way I do it anyway. I talk to people in my neighborhood. I talk to people sometimes online. And so firsthand, working with someone, that's how I do it. Because if I trust you, then I'm going to trust people that you trust. So it's growing a network, really, of trustworthy people.
Yeah,
that is important. If you end up trusting the wrong person, it that can have long-term consequences.
Oh yeah. With plumbing and all other things.
Yeah. So many bad jokes, so little
right?
time.
Yeah, don't do it.
So I have a kind of odd question. So you know, my boyfriend and I were just having this conversation about like people saying like, oh, I can't believe Gen Z, they don't want to work, blah, blah, blah. Like he wasn't saying that, but I've heard other people say that recently. And I'm like, but every older generation says that about the younger generation. And I feel like there's always a rebelliousness. Like right now, there's, riots breaking out all over the US at college campuses. So every generation has its rebellion, right? So I'm curious where you see that punk rock mindset in the generations coming up right now. Does it still exist? And if so, where has it kind of, like, do you see it like, oh, it's just morphed into this, or that? I'm curious if you've kind of have a thought on that.
I do.
Mhm.
And I'm at this point waiting for it. I can see it's starting to grow, but as you said, with riots and that sort of thing, kids are outspoken these days, but there's also a lot of, because of social media, there's an idea that everything everyone says has weight and meaning, and most stuff doesn't. Most people don't care about everything you say.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not around yet. But will it happen? 100%, because AI is going to happen. Is it brewing? Yes. And I don't think that, as you were saying, that the younger generation is lazy. I think they just work differently and they think differently, and that's foreign to some of us. I come from a no, you work until it's done mentality, and that's not healthy. And it's taken a long time to realize that, right?
I think it's like I've been. It's just one of those things because I guess the amateur anthropologist in me is always like tracking these cultural things, because I remember like if we're all kind of Gen Xers or around that, just there was that mentality is like you go out and you just kind of go do whatever the job is, you go, or whoever you work for, you go do the job, you do the best you can,
Yep.
and you make the best of it. And it seemed like then like Gen Y or the millennials come along, now it's like there's a further shift where like I have to be my own agent. Some of the seeds were already planted kind of in our generation, but now you kind of see it evolve to where I kind of have to do my own thing, maybe a little more entrepreneurial minded. Like it's kind of like you looking out more for yourself versus being like that, kind of had that strictly mercenary mindset, where now it's kind of shit more entrepreneurial. And I feel like, I don't know what it's like. I don't think it's completely crystallized in Gen Z because they're too young collectively.
Yeah.
But you definitely kind of get this sense that like people are kind of like, especially with, I think one of the good things with social media is you kind of like it kind of broadening and kind of, I don't know, deepening our collective memory, where now you kind of everybody can now kind of track this stuff over time. And now like so many people are realizing that so many jobs and so many different corporations and businesses is like it's like really like a sucker's bet to just go out there and just try to go out there and just be that good foot soldier, and just like I'm just going to go out there and I'm going to work hard, and I was like, no, because sometimes the hardest workers are the ones that they just get more work as their reward. I've even heard this turned out now, they call it like some kind of punishment. I was just looking at a thing on LinkedIn before we jumped on. But this idea of rewarding your best workers just with more work, or you just keep piling it on them, and then to the point where they're burned out. Now they can't do it.
Right. And
I think collectively more people are seeing that, especially then you get this generation that sees that at a very young age, and they're still processing that. And I think you talk about that punk rock spirit. I think it's just evolving to where people are going, not like they're learning at a younger age to the point where like, nah, I'm not playing that game.
That's it. That's it exactly. We worked ourselves to the bone. We still do, because my expectation of myself is, as I said, I'm just going to do it until it's done. If I'm working till 2:00 in the morning, that's okay, and that is so bad. We now know, and can I get out of it? I'm trying, not successfully, but I try. But 25-year-olds, 30-year-olds, they're like, I'm not doing that. And at first, there was big pushback from people from our generation, like, what? No, well, that's what we do. You just you have to work until it's done. And they're like, no, I'm not good with that. I need to go to my yoga class. And we're like, that's lazy. You are not good.
How dare you have work-life balance?
Right? Bad. So, and by the way, punk, now that we're talking about social media, there's a little bit of punk rock in social media. Like you can now you don't have to have a job. Look, I'm air quoting now. A corporate job. You can start a YouTube channel. You can start like an like things can happen for you, and that is your job. And that's kind of cool. You're not reliant on anyone except yourself. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. What you said just reminded me of I don't know if you know Chris Guillebeau, author. He's runs the Art of Nonconformity blog and now multiple books and whatever, but he's great. And I've been following him for probably 15 years or more. It's been a long time. And he's amazing. But his thing is like, he calls himself unemployable. Like he can't, do a job. And so he didn't. And one of the things, his most recent book was called Gonzo Capitalism, quote unquote, how to succeed in a society or a system that hates you. And like the idea being that the system is made to extract as much from us as possible, like Brandon was saying. And how do you just say, no, I'm not going to participate in that? Like, how do you say that and mean it and succeed so that you never have to do that? And that's what his whole book was about, is people who do that. And so that is inspiring to me. You said it's punk rock. It's punk. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
So for people, you said, you kind of already went over this a little bit, but for people who are interested in getting into video games or animation, and you kind of said, do the work. And from your perspective, what does that mean? Besides, you mentioned the woman who's working 2 hours a day, but what does that look like? Because I know a lot of people who want to get into animation, hear new voice actors come to me and be like, oh, I really want to do animation. And I'm like, yeah, but you need a commercial demo first, really, because get the agents that will get you those auditions, you got to prove that you're bookable and that you will make the money first. And commercials are what makes the money.
Yeah.
So from your perspective, being the casting person and voice director.
Well, you're exactly right. That's it. When people are starting off, I tend to say, dip your toe into a bunch of different genres so that you can figure out, because some people think they want to do animation and then they kind of, I love e-learning. Who would have thought that would have happened? So try to figure that out first. And a lot of people will often get a demo before they should. They start coaching with people that are selling demos, and they shouldn't do that. You've got to be a fully formed performer before you do your demo. You've got to figure out who you are and where you're going before that happens. But I agree with you that it's tough. It's tough. But coaching, figuring out the genres, as I said earlier, watching. If you want to get into gaming, play games. And if you can't play because you suck, I do. I suck. I die in 2 seconds. But there's playthroughs on YouTube you can watch.
Yeah, so you do what I do, and you go watch all the cinematic scenes cut together, and then you can skip sucking at the game and just watch the fun stuff.
That's it.
That's what I'm gonna have to do, because I literally on my commercial demo have a spot that's some people like to play video games. Not me. I suck. I touch the controller, my character dies. It's bad. That is literally the words to the spot my guy wrote for me, because I was like, I can't play video. Mario Kart is my nemesis. Anything with racing, I'm going to crash into the freaking wall every time. Don't put me in a NASCAR race, because I would die. So.
Well, then you can watch playthroughs.
Yeah.
See, now you know.
Yep.
And then you become familiar with the sounds. What does it sound like when someone gets shot? What does it sound like when someone gets shot and injured? What does it sound like when someone gets shot and killed? They're all different sounds. And you become really familiar with that when you're a gamer.
And there's definitely a system to it. I'm realizing, because I one of the big projects I've been working on for the last couple of years is involved me having to learn to do sound design. And you realize there's a way the thing actually sounds, and then there's also the way that kind of Hollywood has trained our brains to think that something sounds.
That's it.
What it sounds like when a sword actually clatters on the floor versus, okay, now I need to find something else, because that little kink doesn't sound as big and intimidating as some little dong, where it's literally probably someone just dropping a trash can lid. It has more body to it.
That's it. It's more fun.
You know,
Yes.
my favorite example of that is eagle. An eagle does not sound at all
Right.
like what we think an
Right.
eagle sounds like.
Of course not.
Aren't they always using a
Well,
red-tailed hawk for that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, or something similar. Yeah. Like bald eagles do not actually sound that tough
No.
at all.
They squawk.
There's not that big, majestic. Oh, it's
That's
like not
it.
like they actually kind of sound it. Yeah. They don't. It does not sound like an animal that's going to strike fear in your heart.
Okay, Brandon, when you edit this, please put in a bald eagle sound just so people can hear it. Like, please
Good
insert
idea.
that.
Well, I had speaking of not bald eagle, but I had I taught at a conference. It was a gaming course, and there was an ex-military guy in the class, and he was sitting way at the back, and we started to do barks, and like get down, fuck it, all the terrible stuff, grenade, all of that stuff, and he went, and he's a giant man, like he was 6'4", just a giant, awesome guy, and he said, Kim, I said, yeah, and he said, wait, that's not what it sounds like, and I said, oh no, I know, this is a video game though, and he said, no, like we don't yell, like we have radios and but that's not fun for the player. This is all about the player. So, okay. And he was great at doing the sounds, but it was just so foreign to him. That's not reality at all. No, it's not. It's a game.
I'll never forget, like one of the coolest and maybe kind of scariest stories I've ever heard when you talk about like that moment of real stuff was from like the Lord of the Rings movies. Like in the second one, there's a scene where a character gets stabbed in the back and the guy goes like that, and Christopher Lee, who apparently had some experience doing that, said that's not how it sounds. Yes. And because he knew because he had done it.
What?
Yeah.
I don't know.
You didn't hear this story?
No.
Apparently Christopher Lee was like the real life James Bond. One of his jobs was to go hunt Nazis after World War II.
Oh.
So like when they were on the set of I think it was The Two Towers, where the guy, I think it was like Wormtongue, gets stabbed. I'm sorry if that's a spoiler, but that movie's been out for 20 years. Deal with it. But now apparently like he was making like a big show of it. And he says, no, when someone gets stabbed in the back, there's just like a like it takes their breath, and like and they when they realize what this guy's experienced with, they're like, oh yeah, like he actually knows.
like we're scared of you now.
But then the director gets to say ultimately, like, no, that's not enough. We need a little more, right?
That's
like,
it.
But I think in this particular case, they took his advice.
Did they? Okay. I hadn't heard that story. No, that's wow. Okay, makes me a little scared of him.
Go look into Christopher Lee's actual, like someday they're going to make a movie about this dude. Like he is a truly epic individual.
Yeah.
Wow.
Renaissance Orama.
What was that?
Renaissance Orama.
Oh yeah.
Actually did a heavy metal album.
Really?
Yes, really.
Wait, Christopher Lee did?
Oh my God.
Yes.
You're blowing my mind here.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Christopher Lee is like, life goals. I mean, it's maybe too late to go hunt. Well, I don't know. I guess you can hunt Nazis nowadays, but they're not official stuff.
It's like when I learned that Dr. Ruth was a freaking sniper.
What?
Yeah, Dr. Ruth Westheimer. I'm pretty sure she was a sniper in World War II. Like I can look it up. You'd have to fact check that, but I'm pretty sure that is true because I saw a little snippet of a documentary about her at one point, and I was like, "Oh, okay."
Wow.
People have pasts.
Yeah, and like, was it Mr. Scott from the original Star Trek was also a badass.
Huh.
Yeah, like in the Scottish Army, English Army, I guess. Well, yeah, whatever that. Yeah, but apparently, like he had like a pretty legit badass war record.
Cool. That's cool.
So,
well,
things you learn.
Thanks. Yeah. Fun facts.
Before we wrap up, is there anything else you want to say to our audience of people that are, still thinking about sitting on those ideas, considering what they want to do and if they want to move forward, how to break,
do it?
Yeah, how to break into that punk rock mindset and get out there and do it.
Well, besides everything we've said, I mean, just try, but don't frame it in a big, overwhelming, I want to write a novel way. Maybe you just want to write a page. and then it's not quite as intimidating, because if you think novel, you're just going to be frozen. So just small bits. You can do a little bit. You can do 5 minutes.
Like a bite-sized punk rock.
There we go.
You gotta learn at least one chord before you can write a song.
There you go.
And another,
True.
then maybe you get at least 3. You got it. I mean, shit, the Ramones. That's
Right? 3.
You need 3 chords. Learn to play them fast.
Yep.
There you go. So, where can the people find you online if they want to hit you up or at you?
Easiest is the website, because it's got all the stuff on there. So it's khcasting.com. Yeah. And we've got all the socials up there too. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much for joining
Thanks,
us.
you
This
guys.
has been
That was
really fun.
Super fun. Awesome. Thank you.
That will be all for this episode. To keep up with the show, follow us on social media at Scratch Claw Push. If social media isn't your thing, you can contact us at scratchclawpush@gmail.com. To learn more about the show, visit scratchclawpush.com. This podcast has been a Carcutta Media production. This recording, or any portion thereof, may not be reproduced or used in any manner whatsoever without the express written permission of the publisher, except for the use of brief quotations in a review. Copyright 2024 by Carcutta Media LLC, all rights reserved.